If you're a fan of The Fridge, consider supporting us on Patreon. Patrons get early access to new interviews, bonus content, and shoutouts in new episodes. Thank you to my first 3 patrons, Alex Gonzalez, Watcher, and Logan Williams. Freezai is a name you've probably come across if you're a fan of Pokemon analysis here on YouTube. Freezai initially made a name for himself with his bite-sized videos focused on very specific topics or facts about competitive Pokemon, bringing interesting knowledge about obscure formats like older gens and Little Cup to a much wider audience. Over time, Freezai has significantly increased the production quality and detail in his analysis, but the variety of his subject matter remains. While he has primarily covered the OU and VGC formats of the newest generation, he still explores the many different avenues Pokemon can be enjoyed competitively, especially with his recent deep dives into the Hackmons format. Freezai has also juggled competition and content better than any channel I've seen, with impressive results in the Elite SBL tournament for OU, a top 1 position on the Random Battles ladder, and even dipping his toes into the official in-person events of VGC doubles with great success. Thank you for taking the time out of your clearly busy schedule to chat with me today, Freezai, and how are you doing?
Hey Jim, Jimothy Cool, I don't know what your first name is, but I'm happy to be here. Yeah, it's been a wild ride in the Pokemon community, starting out from, well, quite frankly, when I started out making YouTube videos, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I kept iterating and I kept doing different things. Now I'm playing VGC and I'm playing OU, random battles. It's been a lot of fun doing all the different, varieties of Pokemon. So I'm very happy to be able to chat with you about that.
Yeah, you're very much a jack of all trades, I feel like.
hopefully not a master of none, but yeah, I like
many.
playing a lot of different formats. Yeah.
First thing I wanted to ask you was the origin of your name, Freezai. It's a nice, catchy name. Where did that come about?
The story is not a good story, but I'll tell it anyway. Very few people actually know the original story, but for those of you who follow me in VGC, you might know my first name is Bouchon. Like, that's my in real life first name, and there's a dog breed called Future of Freezai, something like that, and my name as a kid, that was kind of like an inside joke, so the name is derived from that. I've had a lot of people think it's like Dragon Ball or like Freeze Artificial Intelligence, or apparently there's like a K-pop singer named like Freezia, but none of it's that. It's infinitely more lame than you could have thought of, but that's the actual origin story, so I'm setting the record straight on that.
I thought it was like a reference to some ice type Pokemon or...
Exactly. Yeah, nobody knows the real origin story. It's not a very good one, but yeah.
I like that. An obscure dog breed. Yeah, I remember when your videos were first starting to circulate and become a bit more popular, especially in the old gens community. A lot of people were talking about your video about Miltank in particular. I remember going around a lot.
Miltank with Growl, right? Yeah, I remember that one.
A friend of mine who knows that I'm into Pokemon but isn't into it himself linked me that video and was like, hey, have you seen this? Did you know about this Growl thing? I was like, wow, this guy has a wide reach.
The funniest story I've heard is that I know somebody who's a high school teacher right now, and he told me that his students were watching the Tele ABR game, like in school. They were watching the game on their phones, and he looked at that and he thought that, I was there watching that live. Now I'm a high school teacher and my students are watching that too, the longest game ever. So that's kind of the first first truly like big reach of like, whoa, that's actually that's pretty cool. And I've heard a lot of people talk about, oh yeah, I think it might have been false, but it was somebody in Oceania community who was telling me that at his work they were talking about the World Cup of Pokemon. So I thought that was funny too. But yeah, because of like some of the videos I've done about the World Cup of Pokemon. So that's funny. It's always funny when I have someone who, talks about it in real life, because it really gives you perspective of how much reach you can have even in this, tiny sphere of the community.
I think your videos have done a great job of making this. There's a lot of stories to tell in Smogon and all the different formats and the team tournaments. I think you've done a great job.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stories to tell. Honestly, it's not even Pokemon related. Sometimes it's just drama, but there's a lot of stuff to talk about, and it helps that there's a connection for people to be like, oh, I know that Pokemon, or oh, I played Pokemon as a kid, or oh, I did that or that. And that Pokemon being that connecting factor is a really good way to tell a story that you want to tell, because you have the people already know the characters, so it makes that story much easier to tell.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was talking with my last guest about how the way we analyze Pokemon, it almost is like they're characters in a story, like they're an individual instead of a species of Pokemon.
Yeah,
they have this role in a meta game and a history and an evolution, like a character arc.
Yeah.
It almost felt to me like you must have had some sort of strategy going into your initial videos to fill a gap in the market, but it sounds like maybe you were just trying stuff out and it happened to work. Did you have much of a plan going into all that?
I would call it a mixture of luck mixing with hard work, in the sense that when I started my videos, so for some background about me, I'm 25 years old right now. I started doing my master's degree about 2 years ago. I graduated with that this year, but I started making videos around the start of my master's degree just for fun, just, hey, why don't I try making videos? So in the beginning, I started making battle videos like how Pokeaim and Blunder do it. And then I started, iterating and trying to see what YouTube's about. I got really fascinated with the concept of making videos and iterating and trying to do different things and trying to see what works, what doesn't. So in that regard, I kept iterating till I found something that I thought was personally interesting, just talking about different stories, and then it resonated with the audience too. So in that way, I got lucky in what I found to be interesting, but it was also a combination of, I tried so many things, I was bound to get lucky on something that I was both interested in and resonated with the audience too. So that's something I'm very thankful for as an idea overall.
That is a good approach, to just keep trying things, see what sticks, and find something that you personally enjoy making as well. That's an important factor. How did you feel when your videos first started to pick up some steam and get attention?
The first time it happened, I want to say it was 2 years ago in 2022. At that time, it was honestly it was a really cool feeling. I'll be honest, it's definitely something exciting when you see your video doing well. People are commenting, people are, liking it. You're getting, people telling you, hey, I just saw this come up in my news feed. It's it is definitely probably one of the top feelings I've ever felt, having people resonate with a video you've posted. And then after that, the feeling is, how can I do more of this? People like this one, can I keep doing more and more and more? And what's my approach? And you're just trying to ride the wave. And it's very interesting looking back at it now, what I was trying to do, what I, maybe should have done, shouldn't have done. But it's definitely interesting. I actually have the same question for you. How did it feel when your videos started picking up? Were you, what was your feeling?
Oh, yeah. I've been making videos on YouTube since I was a kid. And
I've seen that Northern Lion compilation.
Oh, yeah. That was probably my first success on YouTube, was that Northern Lion compilation. But that's a hard thing to transition into regular content, or actually piggyback off into something tangible. But the Pokemon videos around when Gen 9 came out, I remember looking at the YouTube studio when that Tyranitar video I did early on first started. It was getting way more views than anything I'd ever done before, and I was just watching the views in real time, like, what the hell's going on?
I remember that video with the Tyranitar and Iron Thorns, right?
Yeah, that was...
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Like my first success. I didn't dwell on it too much, and I was just like, this is an opportunity. I got to seize this to the best ability I can. So I didn't really stop and think about it too much. It's all kind of a blur at that point, to be honest. I was just focused on making more videos and riding the wave, like you said. But now I've reflected on it, and it's pretty amazing.
So at that point in time, what were you doing? Were you thinking about doing YouTube full time, or like what was the scene back then?
Yeah, I was still working and making videos in my free time when I came home. And I was doing that for a little bit, a couple months. And then I eventually became full-time once the views got a bit more consistent.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting, because I don't know if you're planning on talking about this later in the video, or if I'm jumping ahead, but I'm very interested in the decision for people, because I'm not full-time. I'm very interested in how people have gone full-time. So I think, for example, Wolfie's gone full-time, Moxie Boosted has gone full-time, AIM is full-time, I believe. I don't know if Blunder is full-time or not. I don't know, but generally speaking, I'm very interested in those stories of making that leap into, hey, I'm going to do YouTube full-time. What exactly goes on in that calculation?
Is this something you've thought about? Because you definitely have a pretty consistent amount of viewership, and
I've definitely thought about it. So, what it comes down to for me was that, I put a lot of work in school, and I finished, I mentioned this earlier, I got my master's degree. So my intent for that was not to become a full-time YouTuber. My intent was to, go into the corporate world, get a, quote unquote stable job. And this YouTube thing happened almost incidentally. So I was put at this sort of crossroads, do I want to do YouTube full-time? Because the money is essentially full-time. At this point, there's a very consistent viewership. I can reasonably predict how much I can make in a month, which is pretty important if you're trying to pay rent. So I have this basic idea, but it really came down to, they're like sunk cost fallacy, but you can't just ignore that. I did all that effort. Am I really going to throw it away to do YouTube? And it's not really throwing it away, but this, idea of sunk cost fallacy, trying to ignore that and, trying to really think about it. So and all that is just, window dressing. But what it really came down to for me was I was thinking, is this something that, not even 10 years from now, 5 years from now, will I be happy saying that, I'm making Pokemon videos for a living? Is that something will I get bored at some point? If I do get bored at some point, will I have, reasonable options to transition into? There's a lot of calculations when you go off the beaten path, so to speak. And I'm not at the point right now where I can say that I love YouTube so much I'm willing to drop everything for it. So I'm keeping it like a side project for me. It's my secondary thing. And if it goes really, really well, like if I'm ever, like Wolfie tier famous, I might drop out and do it full time. But for now, I'm very much okay with it being a part-time thing. And if I'm losing out on opportunities because I'm not devoting, 100% effort, I look at myself and I think, I can be happy knowing that, because I do want to keep this like a part-time thing. And my thoughts on it are a little muddled and all over the place, but that's my general feeling, is that I'm not ready to commit into it, which is why I'm very interested in other people's thoughts on, what was the deciding factor that made them want to commit to it, is basically my bird's eye view on the whole thing.
That's interesting. There is an inherent risk to doing YouTube as well. Like, there's value in a more stable career path that you've clearly invested so much time into. So I can fully understand that. Me personally, I have not invested as much time into education, and I would say YouTube is something I have been passionate about for a long time. So to me, the pivot to full-time YouTube was a pretty easy decision, because it's something I've always wanted to do.
So where do you see Jimothy Cool, the channel, going in the next 5 to 10 years? Are you planning on, trying to really expand, or keep it slow and steady? What's the idea here with the channel?
Well, this podcast is an attempt to expand and maybe have some sort of product that people can enjoy if they're not into Pokemon, that's more broadly appealing.
I love that. I love that idea. Definitely, the idea of a podcast is fantastic. The way you've been doing it with different Pokemon creators coming in, definitely. I love the podcast. I think it's a great idea.
Oh, thanks. And I got a few things going on, like the main channel, my tournaments channel, which I'm getting help with from some cool people in the Gen 3 community, and the gaming channel. I feel like I've got a good balance of stuff going on, and I'm hopeful for the future. You can never predict, but
yeah,
I'm gradually going up and trying to adapt to the times and whatever.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of your things, like the Revival Gaming channel. I'm a fan of. I think that's a cool idea with the tournament you started, and overall the Gen 3 community. I feel like it's gotten a lot bigger, and I think a lot of that is due to your work with Gen 3 OU. So that's really cool to see. Like I've looked at some of the numbers for like games per month. That the Gen 3 ladder has skyrocketed in maybe the last year or so. That's really cool to see. Definitely in part with Revival Gaming and the like.
Yeah, I've been spreading my propaganda, and it's working.
I get so many comments about Gen 3 OU, and unfortunately, I don't play the tier. So I'm just like, no, I don't play it. And then like, oh yeah, really cool. Jimothy Cool got me into it, and I'm like, that's fantastic. Yeah, but I personally don't play it. But it's really cool to see the old gens as a whole getting a revival, so to speak.
Yeah, and I was definitely a little inspired by your initial videos, which a lot of them did cover old gens, even some obscure formats like Gen 4 UU and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool to hear.
It's encouraging to see like videos about obscure knowledge about old gens getting attention, and that there is actually an appeal and a potential for that stuff. I think not too long ago you would have viewed making videos about a topic like that as too obscure for the wider Pokemon audience, who probably they vaguely know about Smogon formats, mostly OU, VGC people know about. But now I feel like the Pokemon YouTube world is expanding a lot, and you can...
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
I've even seen channels specifically dedicated to like Little Cup doing pretty well, so that's fun.
Yeah, I've seen Lemon LC, the Little Cup YouTuber. Then for RBY, you have Big Yellow and Reverend. So I don't know if there's any Gen 2 YouTubers, but I've only Gen 1. There's a lot of people. Gen 3, there's you to an extent, and then there's Little Cup. There's a Monotype YouTube channel. Are there any, Gen 2 specific, Gen 4 specific? I'm not sure.
There's a guy called Cherry Bong who does Gen 2 videos.
Oh, yeah, I've seen some of his videos. He's done stuff on Gen 2 UU. Yeah, okay.
And Dawn makes videos about, like, the Gen 2 lower tiers, all kinds of Gen 2 tiers, which is pretty interesting too.
That's very cool.
What have been some of your favorite formats to play competitively over the years? Because you've played a lot of different formats.
So if I have to pick my favorite formats, I think number one, I'm going with random battles. And the reason I love random battles is, for me, I like playing a lot more than I like team building. For team building, it's like if I have a good idea, I like team building. But if I don't have a good idea and I'm just searching for something to work, I really hate team building. So for me, random battles is great because I can just pick it up and then, play a good game. Once you get to the higher ladders, you're going to be playing good people, which is what I like Pokemon. So the basic idea for me is that, like, in a best of 3, random battles has way too much variance. If somebody beats you in a best of 3, it doesn't really mean anything. They could have had good random matchups, right? But over the aggregate, when you're talking about, hundreds of games on the ladder and you see that GXE score, you can pretty reasonably tell, who's good at the game, who's not. You can look at, 89 GXE versus like 85 or 82. You can get a good idea of who's good. And it's a very satisfying way for me to measure playing skill in particular, not team building skill or anything like that, but in particular playing skill only. Random battles is a fantastic metric for doing that. And it's very easy to get a game. You load up a ladder and you can have a 2300 match instantly. There's no lag. So number 1, I'd have to give it to random battles. Other than that, because I think that might have been the expected answer. Let me think if there's anything a little more obscure, a little more niche, a little more hipster. I'm trying to think of old gens, which I really like. When I think about like Gen 3 and before, honestly, I'm not a fan. I feel like the games take too long. That's not what attracts me to Pokemon, to be honest. I know there are a lot of people who appreciate the nuance, but I'm not here for that. I'm here for, Shell Smash and Sweep, and that's just what I find interesting. But I'm trying to think what tiers. I think Gen 6 UU was one of the first tiers I started playing. I'm a big fan of that tier, but they banned Slurpuff, my favorite Pokemon, so that's kind of a drawback for me personally, but apparently it was broken, so that's fine. I've liked VGC a lot since I've started playing. You know what, let's just leave it at random battles for that. And there's a lot of Little Cup formats too, and fundamentally why I like Little Cup, you have the same mechanics as singles to an extent, but it's a lot more offensive, which is how I like to play the game. So there's a lot of Little Cup formats I like. Probably Gen 7 Little Cup is a format I like the most. I like Gen 8 too, but apparently a lot of people hate it too. There's like whole PR threads about hating Gen 8. But I liked it too when Vullaby was in the tier. But yeah, number 1, random battles, and all the other rest comes after that for me.
Funnily enough, in Gen 6, I wasn't too into OU, and I was really into both random battles and Little Cup for much of the same reasons. Like, you can queue up without needing to build a team, and it's more about fundamentals and decision making over a long aggregate of games, which does have its appeal. It's like a great format for people who enjoy the ladder experience in particular. And
right.
I've always thought that of all the formats that have potential to be like an official singles format, Little Cup 6v6 would be a good one. I think a reason that they don't like OU or 6v6 singles formats in an official capacity is because of like stall strategies, and games can vary in their length a lot, but Little Cup is very fast paced.
That's true, but I think fundamentally, like when I played a lot of cartridge for VGC, and the animations are so painfully slow. Like I literally hate playing VGC on the cart because every turn, like leftovers, takes literally 5 seconds to proc. Now imagine, 2 Pokemon having leftovers each turn. That's extra 10 seconds waiting for the leftovers to sparkle, and that's really, really painful. So I think any 6 versus 6 format, I think will just take too long to play, and it just really becomes a drag to the point where I don't see it ever becoming like even Little Cup, for all its benefits of being shorter and faster, it still takes a long time to play that on the cart. So I'm not a fan overall. I really don't think there's a future on the cart without the simulator. These things wouldn't be possible. The simulator is the only reason OU is even fun, really. Little Cup, OU, whatever it is.
That's true. I played a bit of VGC in Gen 7, and it took a while to get used to the cartridge stuff from playing simulators my whole life. Not only the animations, but something that annoyed me was the camera, like zooming in on a particular Pokemon for 1 second. I'm used to seeing like all the Pokemon on screen and having that be like a signal of what they have, but
yeah, it gets kind of bad in Gen 9 too, because if a Pokemon terrestrializes, it gets that big Terra hat, right? So if you have a big Pokemon next to a small Pokemon, sometimes you literally cannot see the small Pokemon, and it's like not a big thing. It's just slightly annoying when it does happen. And it's really not a big deal, but I just thought it was funny to mention.
That would probably annoy me too. Yeah. I just like seeing everything clearly, but
yeah, me too, definitely.
Fellow YouTuber Chompy asked, speaking of that, So far in Generation 9, what has been more fun for you, singles or VGC?
Oh, VGC without a doubt. I'm definitely VGC pilled right now. I think it's better. Well, better is a very strong and loaded word. I like it more than Smogon right now for a lot of reasons, to be honest. So as a metagame, right? I find them both equal. Like I wouldn't say I like from a pure playing point of view, like do I like the mechanics of the game and how it plays out? Do I like one more than the other? They're about 50-50 to me. So I couldn't really pick. If you told me to pick, one metagame for life, I'd flip a coin. Like they're both fine to me. I don't, derive any like, oh wow, I really like the intricacies of, heavy duty boots, right? That's not what I feel. And I don't feel the same way of, oh, double battle, so many Pokemon on the field. That's a really, really hyped up thing. Like they're both fun in their own distinct way. I wouldn't pick one over the other. But when you look at everything else VGC has to offer, like actual in-person tournaments, the fact that they're officially backed, that, there's, things to do, it feels more satisfying in VGC. But that's somewhat of a vanity thing, right? Do you like a format because you can make money from it? That's not really a good reason. So that's only part of the reason that, you can have actual tournaments you go to, you can have more, the fact that you're more official is it's a different feeling, right? But one thing that's also true is that going to VGC tournaments has been a lot of fun. I've actually met a lot of Smogon players at tournaments, and having a shared interest when you go out to meet friends, it's a good feeling. You can get a lot of meaningful interactions with people, and the stakes are relatively low because everyone's roughly having the same hobby, so it's not really a tough social situation to be in if that's something that you're scared of, right? And okay, actually, I do have one thing that I really like about VGC. And that is that, like right now in Smogon, the tournaments are week to week, right? So you're preparing for a particular opponent, you're practicing their tendencies, you're trying to scout them. But in VGC, you don't prep for an opponent, you prep for an entire tournament, right? So that really, it's really satisfying for me to try and build one team and perfect that team and, try and win an entire tournament with it instead of trying to, counter team one guy and then counter team another guy, or, risk getting counter teamed myself. I like the idea of just building for a tournament, trying to cover all my matchups and trying to build that, quote unquote perfect team. I like it a lot more than building week for week. And that's a personal preference thing. I know some people who like the idea of, building one team a week, but I don't find that as satisfying as VGC. So metagames are all equal and VGC does all the little things better. And I just like it more, to be honest.
That's very fair.
Do you have any plans of getting into VGC? I know the Oceania region is pretty starved for tournaments, which is kind of a bummer, but
I tried it. I think it's not for me. Mostly just because I prefer the gameplay experience on simulators and all the variety of formats. If we're talking about just current gen OU, I would probably agree that current gen VGC is a better format. I'm not super fond of current gen OU, but what I appreciate about Smogon is all the variety in formats.
That's true, because VGC, the old gen, once the format is finished, it's just done. No one is ever going to touch that again. But you can play a lot of old gens in Smogon, which is definitely something I didn't talk about, but that's definitely true.
And that's the kind of competitive experience I enjoy the most, is like an older game that has a bit of history. Like I used to play Smash Bros. Melee, and I like all the fighting games and stuff like that. So I think, that's why I like Gen 3 so much, and even Gen 5 OU with all its issues I enjoy.
Yeah, that's definitely cool. Yeah.
But I do like the in-person tournament aspect. It's something that feels like it's missing a little bit. On the other hand, though, it is convenient to be able to play at home and play with everybody around the world. That's something that's kind of cool about Smogon, is it? Since the tournaments are usually like each round is takes a week but to give you time to schedule, so you can play with someone from literally across the entire world.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Definitely an aspect of VGC you don't have. Like all your meaningful tournaments are online. You can definitely, there's definitely a limiting factor for VGC. In fact, about me, I lived in India for high school and college, so I couldn't play VGC literally. So I could only play VGC after I moved to the United States. So that was kind of different for me. So that's definitely, accessibility is a huge deal for sure. I'm only singing the praises of VGC because I'm in a privileged enough position to actually go to the tournaments. But if I'm not in that position where maybe I don't have the money or I'm in the wrong country, it's tough. So I definitely agree about accessibility and, the worldwide nature of Smogon.
And it's also literally like free, whereas if you want to play VGC, you got to buy a Switch
Yeah.
and the game, and there's also the time commitment of actually getting the Pokemon that is a bit of a barrier.
Oh,
Whereas
yeah, absolutely.
you could literally
Although
pick up
with
and play.
getting the Pokemon, I'd say maybe 80% of people gen them in, and you have to do it. You can't, name your Pokemon freemons.org, right? But if most people have like the common sense to do it properly. But yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying.
Even that is a little bit of a barrier, though. Not everyone's like tech savvy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, definitely. Yeah, a lot of people who are new don't even know about it. I know about it because I've been in Pokemon for a while, so I kind of know that people do it. But if you're absolutely brand new, then you would have no idea for sure.
How do you go about juggling your channel duties and all this competing you do in all these different formats you play? It's a lot. Like me personally, I've found it difficult to continue competing the same way I used to with my channel picking up more steam, and that being more of my focus now.
Well, the real secret is that I don't build my teams. I've said this. I said this in already, but I like playing more than building. So I know some people are building purists, that you should only use the teams that you build. But I'm very comfortable picking up a team that I find on the forums or from a friend, and then tweaking it to how I like to play, and then going with that. So if I save a lot of time, like playing doesn't really take a long time. You can play a game in 15 minutes, right? But if you're able to cut down on the 1 hour building session, that's a lot of time saved. So for me, I've distilled the Pokemon experience to what I'm interested in doing. So that kind of saves me a lot of time. But other than that, I think it's about prioritizing and being selective about what, opportunities you want to do, what opportunities you want to take, being, measure twice, cut once, right? You, before even starting a video, think about it. Is this really something I want to do? Is it, being more selective about my priorities has been something I've been focused on, especially with, stuff like VGC taking out, a considerable amount of time, for example.
You said you're also still working a regular job. So I wonder if this Pokemon and YouTube stuff still feels like a hobby and a passion thing for you that you do in leisure time. For me, it's starting to feel more like a job, which is not a bad thing. It's just a transition.
Yeah, it's definitely a different thing. To make something your full-time job is definitely a commitment. I'm curious, how does your day look? Is it like a 9 to 5, or how do you structure your day with full-time content creation?
I have a pretty messy schedule, but I usually try to, in the morning, first thing I record some videos for my gameplay channel. Then I brainstorm video ideas. I think I work pretty differently to other channels because I try to make my analysis videos like in one day, and I've got my format pretty refined now because I've done it so many times.
Right. Definitely something I've been through as well, because we both have, to an extent, sometimes similar content styles where it's like, it may be an 8-minute video about a particular topic. So I definitely understand where you're coming from with that.
At the moment, I think I'm working a little bit harder than I did at my old job, just because I'm trying.
It's a lot easier to work hard on something you care about. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Something that you did that I really enjoyed was your Freedom Cup ladder event, which was a temporary format with almost no rules. I think the only rules were just that you had the same ban list that Nintendo uses for like restricted legendaries. Is that right? Yeah,
that's correct.
Because, everybody who makes Pokemon videos on YouTube gets the same comments about, like, if they just never banned anything, the metagame would be perfect. It's because you're banning all these things that all these issues arise. So I love that you said, let's actually do that then. Let's see if that's true. Here's a format where nothing is banned.
Yeah.
And I believe that metagame had a lot of issues. It was...
Yeah, it definitely... Yeah, it was definitely an experiment first and foremost. So, like, for those of you who may not have actually played it, the metagame was basically entirely Basculegion, and it was kind of like hyper offensive team. You had Basculegion, then you had King Gambit because you needed Sucker Punch for Basculegion, and I believe in the finals we had Michael Best use Dondozo stall, and Fissure Dondozo picked up 3 kills in one of the finals games. Now, unfortunately, all the replays are lost because the Pokemon Showdown database went down, and those games
really?
they're just gone forever. It was fun. I should have could have made a video about it. I wanted to, but I couldn't think of like a compelling narrative, and I kind of let it go by the wayside, and then bang, the database thing went down, so I can't do it even if I wanted to anymore. So it's kind of lost to time right now. I could have, should have, would have done something better to kind of broadcast, what actually happened in the tournament, what were the good strategies. So kind of a missed opportunity for me over there. But overall, I think it was very fun to do it, hosting a tournament like that. It did die down towards like the later weeks. It was structured as a ladder tournament because I wanted, a high number of games. But at some point, the ladder did die down. I think the ladder peaked in maybe the 15, 16, 1700s. It never really got to the OU level of gameplay. But it was fun. A lot of people so for example, in Japan and Korea, they have their 3v3 singles formats, which are incredibly popular there. They don't even know about Smogon. But someone from, I believe it was either the Chinese or Japanese rooms, they asked me, oh, can we advertise the Freedom Cup thing? And we think it's really cool because that's how they're used to playing, right? 3v3 Nintendo rules, but now it's in a 6v6 format. So that was definitely interesting that there was a lot of people who actually wanted to see that from some of the Asian communities too. But yeah, that's basically, I thought Freedom Cup was cool. Yeah, that's basically my thoughts about it. It was a cool experiment. Nothing more meaningful than that, I guess you can call it. But yeah.
It's just cool to have this data point we can look at of like, okay, what would that actually look like? Because a lot of people do comment about that all the time.
Absolutely. And a lot of shout outs to the Pokemon Showdown people who let it happen. For example, Dewabblefet, he really was helped me get through some of the red tape with actually getting the format on Pokemon Showdown, which was cool. So yeah, definitely a lot of shout outs to the PS team for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Very awesome little project. But on that topic, how do you feel about Gen 9 OU and the level of involvement with the Smogon Council this time around, with way more active like bans and suspect tests very frequently? It's slowed down now, but throughout the whole generation, it's like maybe the most I've ever seen. And that was causing a lot of controversy and confusion among some of the community. The constant shifts.
So first of all, a lot of the people who have complaints about it don't know the historical context. So a lot of people will say that, oh, you shouldn't have banned this Pokemon first. You should have given it some time, or instead of a council vote, you should have done, a proper suspect vote, right? But I don't know. Were you around for Gen 7 OU, Gen 7 or Gen 8? Gen 8, you're probably around, right?
Yeah, I've been playing since Gen 5 days. So I remember Gen 7.
So during Gen 7 and Gen 8, they would do things, slow and steady. So if Formosa's banned, ban worthy, they would go through the full suspect vote and Formosa would get banned 91-9, right? Then they would go through another broken Pokemon, take 2 weeks to do that. It would get banned, 85-15. You would take another 2 weeks and then another Pokemon will get banned, 80-20, right? And it's just really obvious these Pokemon are ban worthy. It's just obvious to everyone. But to go through, like the non-dictator way of doing it would take a lot of time, and meanwhile tournaments are getting affected by it because you have to use Formosa when you know it's going to get banned in a week anyway. So my perspective is that the Gen 9 kind of aggressive tiering methods are because it's basically learning from the mistakes of the past, where it took too long to ban broken things. Because once you ban broken things, then you can move on to the more 50-50 things that are maybe broken, maybe not. So for example, Gouging Fire got suspected, not banned. Walking Wake, suspected, not banned. King Gambit, suspected, not banned. But you could only have those tests if you were heavy-handed to getting the obvious stuff out really, really quickly. And that's basically what they've done. So I don't really have many complaints. I know Volcarona was a controversial one at the time. That's probably the only one that's maybe iffy. But the other ones are just following the idea of let's not save time. We know better than, the guy at 1200 who's crying about, dictatorships, right? We know better than them is kind of the idea. A little bit elitist, I know, but don't really have a problem. But number two is that I honestly don't care. I've kind of stopped caring about Smogon tiering in the sense of, at one point I was really interested in these debates of, oh, is this Pokemon broken? Is it unhealthy? Is it uncompetitive? But at some point it's just kind of like, I don't care. If this Pokemon's, kind of overpowered, I'll just deal with it. I don't really care. And then Gen 9, I played a lot more VGC than OU. And it's kind of like, yeah, okay, maybe, Volcarona is a little broken. I'll just deal with it. I'm not unhappy because I'm playing a Volcarona OU, right? But I understand that different people have different opinions about what is, fair or fun, whatever it is. But for me personally, I've developed like an apathy towards tiering as a whole because I just don't care anymore. I just want to play the game. I don't really look into tiering or suspect tests too much anymore.
Those debates can get a bit exhausting.
Yeah, they get exhausting. I know Gen 5 in particular has had so many debates,
yeah.
but I just don't I don't care if extra drill is allowed or not allowed, or Latios, or sand
Gen
balance.
5
It's
is the
just not
most
something that I
divisive
care.
one. There's so many different, like, people think Reuniclus is broken and should be banned. People think Drizzle as a whole should be banned. Latios, Keldeo, Alakazam.
Yeah.
Like, so, like, apparently there's like 20 different issues to tackle.
Yeah. For me, ignorance is bliss. I just do not care.
Yeah, that's the easier route. But yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
the idea that, like, them taking swifter action on the obviously broken stuff was a really good thing. So, like, especially, like, early on, Fluttermane, absurd. What if that took like a month to
Right.
get banned, right? Like,
Yeah,
it'd
you
just
have
be
to do a
stupid.
2-week suspect for it. Iron Bundle, 2-week suspect for it. It'll take way too long.
And I think it's starting to pay off, even though the Smogon Council has received a lot of backlash and there's a lot of controversy about everything. Now the metagame's kind of stable. Like, it's there's not really anything obviously broken, and
But all the same, people don't like OU. People complain that it's too. Actually, I don't know what people are complaining about it now, but I know people don't like OU. They didn't like OU a few months ago. I just feel like people don't like any tier. So I understand why people feel the way they do. It's just not my perspective anymore, is my thing.
well, there's battle spots, but singles to play, or Ubers if you prefer playing with the banned stuff. Even Ubers UU exists now if you want to play with those Pokemon in that weird limbo between.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of Pokemon in that in between area, which is why in some generations they have a UUBL format and stuff like that to give all this huge list of Pokemon somewhere to actually exist. If you want more variety in, like, I want to use this particular guy, Smogon is where you should go, because
Yeah, all
often
the different tiers, right? Yeah.
I think people just complain to complain sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
I was a little bit iffy on the sleep ban. I think maybe that should have been a suspect, but I don't care that much. Like, it's
Oh yeah, that the hypnosis and the Darkrai Iron Value, that thing was definitely very messy. It really comes down to how you believe what Showdown should be doing or not doing, or how much should you try and be accurate to card. And it's just like, I don't know, it's very I wouldn't even call it complicated, but I just think it's a very annoying debate. So I just kind of exited out. I did not care about the whole thing. There were massive threads discussing it, and I put those on ignore and moved on.
Yeah, I did a video on it, shared my thoughts, but I didn't care too much. I think the metagame is better with sleep banned overall, but maybe they should. It's a little unfortunate that, like, the non-broken sleep mons are now just deleted.
So yeah, like Yawn Torkoal being gone, that's tough.
Yeah, and I like what sleep brings to the table sometimes.
Yeah, there's some Pokemon that's real fun with sleep too, or at least like balanced sleeping Pokemon who are not like Darkrai is overpowered with it, right? But there are definitely balanced Pokemon with sleep powder or whatever, right?
Like Amoonguss, I think is perfectly fine.
Oh yeah, definitely. Amoonguss is fine.
We got a question from No Thankyou, who asked, I feel like Freezai was one of the first to understand how to do Pokemon shorts. How did he figure that out? How do you feel about the short form side of YouTube, which is a relatively new thing?
Well, for me, with my like 2-minute, 3-minute video, that was just trial and error, talking about something I thought was interesting and then having it stick. Because I tried talking about a lot of things that I found interesting, but not all of them, stuck, right? So a little bit of trial and error. If we're talking about like the YouTube shorts, like the literal YouTube shorts, I think Wolfie VGC does a really good job with his YouTube shorts. I think he does really a fantastic job of distilling, sometimes a complicated topic into something, even, a kid scrolling TikTok can figure out. So I think he's done a very excellent job with respect to that. My YouTube shorts, I don't feel are quite at that level yet. But I guess I did have the first mover advantage with the not literal shorts, but the general idea of a short video.
Yeah, I spoke with Pokeyam about it as well. I think he's done very well with his shorts.
Oh yeah, but definitely Pokeyam. His shorts were fantastic as well. The way he works with, I believe, his editor to make things that look really, really clean. A lot of information in a quick amount of time. Very easy to digest. I'm a big fan of what Pokeyam's done with his shorts as well.
I've tried shorts, but I've personally had a bit of difficulty like getting much out of them. I find them a bit annoying to make too. But Pokeyam seems to have a lot of success with that. Like a lot of people do. Get introduced to his long form content through shorts, which is interesting. It's definitely something to look at.
Something interesting about me is when TikTok was really like popping off, I was in India at the time, and India banned TikTok, so I just was not using it at all. So I never got into, so that I moved to the United States, I never really had the urge to download TikTok, so I've never actually used TikTok before. I only got TikTok because everyone's using it for everyone's using it. I need to use it for YouTube, right? At least understand it. So that's why I've been doing YouTube Shorts. But I don't have. I'm very thankfully not TikTok brained. I have never scrolled a vertical loop before, so I'm very thankful for that. So, but I do. So I don't have the kind of I'm not exactly the target demographic, so it's a bit harder for me to make videos about it, for example. But yeah.
I also have not really gone down the TikTok rabbit hole. Not because it was banned, but just because it always seemed like too addicting and dangerous to just you hear about people who scroll for like 2 hours straight.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And that kind of thing, it rewires your brain where if you're bored for even like 1 second, you just skip, and then it becomes difficult to pay attention to anything. And I really like watching, longer movies and like books and stuff. So I would be frightened of my attention span getting affected by that.
Yeah.
We've got a question from Year of the Bows. What is your favorite or most creative set that you've brought to any major game or tournament? It can be anything, Smogon Tours, doubles, Little Cup, etc.
Oh, I actually have a really good example for this. It might be helpful with the replay. I don't think it'll work for an audio only. But basically, it was the Little Cup World Cup semifinals, right? And I'm using. I'm actually scared if I try to explain it too much, it'll be too hard to understand. But I'm using a Diglett with Arena Trap, and the whole idea with Diglett with Arena Trap is you want to trap Pokemon, duh, right? But there's one problem, that Pokemon is Onix, right? So Onix has a very high defense stat. So if you try and trap it with Earthquake, you just don't do enough damage, and it knocks you out with its own Earthquake. So to get around that, you can use Earth Power, right? So Earth Power can knock out. No, Earth Power is a special attack, so it hits the special defense, right? So it doesn't actually knock out Onix, right? So you need to boost its power with something, right? So the most common way to do that is run Choice Specs Diglett, which is Earth Power Choice Specs Diglett to trap Onix. That's kind of like a meme gimmick idea, right? So I didn't bring that to a tournament, but I used my Diglett, I brought it versus an Onix, I Earth Powered, I knocked out the Onix, and then they go to Grookey after it, a grass-type Pokemon. And now everybody thinks it's Choice Specs because, that's haha, funny gimmick, right? Choice Specs Diglett. But then I used Sludge Bomb to OHKO the Grookey right after it because I was not Choice Specs, I was Expert Belt, and I actually calculated that Expert Belt was enough to knock out Onix. You didn't need Choice Specs, you only needed 1.2 times boost. And that was definitely the nerdiest explanation of a Pokemon thing I've ever done, but that was basically like I tricked them one time by trapping an Onix unexpectedly, then I tricked them a second time by trapping the Pokemon that came after that.
Choice Specs. I love that. Which that's Little Cup format was that in? Favorite.
Gen 8 Little Cup, I want to say Grookey, right? Grookey came out in Gen 8, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Grookey was Gen 8. Yeah, Gen 8 Little Cup.
I was thinking you could run a Hidden Power Water or something, but yeah, there's no Hidden Power. That's fantastic. I guess no one thought to calc Expert Belt. Do you need some special attack investment for that? Probably.
I actually don't remember now, but I remember my opponent also recorded his game, so I could see his point of view. Like after the game, I could see his point of view, how he thought about it, and seeing him, look at Choice Specs and then go to Grookey thinking he's safe. That was very satisfying for the tech to work there.
That's some of my favorite bluffs you can do in Pokemon is representing one thing and then unexpectedly having another thing. Like in Gen 3, you can do that with Lumberry Medicham, because if you get hit by sand, they assume you have Choice Band, and they might go to Gengar on your Brick Break, and then you can unexpectedly switch moves to Shadow Ball, and you have the Lumberry to heal Will-O-Wisp.
Yeah, that's really cool. Have you had anything like that in your games, like an actual tournament game? Like the Medicham idea?
That's something I saw Super Epic Ampharos do. And I remember in Gen 7, I used to have the Z-Stone Katana, and you can represent Choice Scarf with that, and then unexpectedly hit Zapdos with Z Giga Impact.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
I guess that's something that I would dislike about VGT is closed team sheets kind of erases that whole element of the game, which I think is one of the coolest parts. But there's benefits to that too.
Yeah, for sure. Like one of the things about VGC is they have team lock, right? So you have to use the same team. So in a closed team sheet, best of 3, you can figure stuff out in game 1 and use that knowledge for game 2, which I think is a very interesting dynamic. It does have its own issues related to tournament scouting, where your friend who played you in round 1, who played the opponent in round 1 might have information. For example, there's some messiness with that. But that's an interesting aspect of closed team sheet VGC.
Isn't that why they did open team sheet? Because people were passing around info on.
Yeah,
It's a bit lame.
apparently the reason they did open team sheet VGC is about some issues with the battle box, but that's a side effect that it does remove that scouting element of it.
I guess that's kind of an unfortunate part of competitive Pokemon sometimes, because that can happen in singles too, where maybe
Oh yeah, for sure.
scout someone's team, you faced them on the ladder or something the day before. I don't know how that could happen, but it can.
Yeah. Yeah, I've really lost interest in, scouting for an opponent. I just want to show up to a game, bring a team I'm proud of, and not have to worry about getting counter teamed. And that's what I really like about VGC.
It does simplify that aspect a lot. It can be a bit tiring when you're try-harding in a specific Smogon format and you have to build new teams constantly. Because
yeah, that's my biggest gripe. Like, you can't opt out of the counter team meta. You can't just decide, hey, I'm not going to counter team anyone. I'm just going to bring my favorite teams, because guess what? The other guy's counter teaming you. So you'd have to bring, maybe not your favorite team. You can bring a different team, and that's just, it's the way the format is, right? There's nothing inherently right or wrong, but I just don't like it as much as VGC.
I would agree with that. So you had a tweet recently that stirred up a bit of controversy. You posted an image of Goodra, sorry.
I'll be honest. I knew what I was doing when I posted that. I knew that. Like, I meant it competitively, but I knew if I word it vaguely enough, there's going to be the Goodra lovers who will come out, because I was brainstorming for a video, and I look at other channels, what are they doing right? And Pokeaim MD had his #1 video right now is, what's the worst pseudo legendary? And when I looked at it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's obviously gonna make a lot of people mad, so I'm just gonna post about it. And it went about, as I'm looking at it right now, it's at 1.4 million views right now, my tweet about Goodra. And there's enough, plausible deniability that I was only talking about competitive. And I'm seeing these, 100-page tweet threads, talking about casual versus competitive, and they're fighting. And I'm, it's like Oppenheimer there, because I knew what I was doing when I did that. But I did have a controversial Goodra tweet, so I can put that on the bucket list.
What he said alongside an image of Goodra was, "We need to talk about how awful of a pseudo legendary this is. This has no game." And there was one particular quote tweet went insanely viral, which said, "Pokemon fans hate whimsy and joy," quoting the original tweet. Which
yeah, I mean, I'm not putting Goodra on my in-game team. It looks stupid. It's like gummy
you
and
like
gooey.
The visual
if I'm
design?
gonna pick a pseudo, if I want a dragon, I want something cool. I want Hexorus. I want what's the cool Salamence, or Dragonite's Dragonite's okay, but my inner 12-year-old boy is telling me that I need claws and teeth, right? So Goodra is not showing up on my in-game team. So I stand by what I said. I'm not a huge Goodra fan at all. Sorry if I've offended any of the Goodra fanatics listening right now.
There's a lot of good. It's a popular guy, but
I didn't know that. I thought it was just everyone had the same opinion, where it was kind of this goofy looking idiot who was like, okay, what is this guy bringing to my team? Nothing. Let me just bench him for like Noivern or Dragalge or something that looks
it's a little unique.
evil.
They were trying something different. It's a mono dragon, and it's a bulkier pseudo legendary with. It's got a good move pool.
I stand by what I said. It has no game. I'm standing by it.
I'm sorry to Goodra Nation. Freezai is not who you want in your corner. I kind of like it. It's okay, but in game in competitive, it struggles to do much, because it's a bulky. It's kind of a bad monotyping for a special wall, because it's weak to ice and fairy, and even dragon weakness sucks a little bit. You need a bit of neutral typing, and has no healing or much utility. It's like a bulky attacker, but then there's better bulky attackers. Struggles to find much of an identity in competitive.
Yeah, for sure.
What is an example of a Pokemon that you think does have game, then?
Oh, Salamence has game. Metagross has game. I'm trying to any Pokemon that would make it onto my in-game team. I'm trying to think, what was my in-game team in Scarlet and Violet? I think actually Scarlet and Violet, what I really liked was they made it easy to train up Pokemon. Like, if you find a cool Pokemon, you want to add it to your team, you can EXP share that to make it fit on your team really quick. There's no grinding. So I think my team changed a lot. But I want, Gallade. I'm trying to think of all the cool Pokemon. Like, how you have to pick between like cool Pokemon or cute Pokemon or strong Pokemon or tough Pokemon? I'm picking cool and tough for all of them. So that's just how I build my team.
Is that something you'd take into account in competitive, or are you purely like
Oh no,
function over
competitive.
style?
I'm here to win. Competitive, I'm here to win. I'm using Clefable. I'm using
yeah.
Aloma Mola. I'm picking the ugliest Pokemon ever. I'm doing that to win. But in game, when it doesn't matter, I'm picking the coolest ones.
Have you ever grown endeared to a Pokemon you would never use in game because of its competitive utility, that you grew to enjoy it for that reason? Like maybe Clefable or something?
To be honest, I haven't played a lot of in-game since I started playing competitively. Some of it's just outgrowing it. Like I can play, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet one time and get through the story, but if I want to play it again, I'm probably not doing that. So I don't really have a good example of a Pokemon like that because of competitive, I like them in game. I actually don't have a good example of that. No.
Dang. That's unfortunate. In your custom avatar, you've got Melmetal by your side. Is that a Pokemon you enjoy?
Oh yeah, I like Melmetal. I think it's fun to get the double Iron Bash flinch. It's like 51%, right? So that's always fun when you're able to flinch down like a Slowking or a Toxapex. Maybe not Toxapex, but Slowking for sure is fun to do. The reason it's in my custom avatar is because that was a team tournament. I've been stealing a team tournament avatar for a couple of years now. It's like the Smogon Champions League Breakers official custom avatar, but I just kept using it because it matched my color palette, like with the whole Cyrus and Melmetal and Freezai, right? So that's why I've been using it. But I actually do have a custom avatar that I don't use. It's a custom avatar of Virat Kohli, who's a cricket player, but I don't use that one too often, but I do have another custom avatar.
Oh, that's cool. I always wanted a custom avatar. It was cool to finally get one for participating in the Showdown Star tournament. They gave us all custom avatars.
They actually did. They did do like YouTubers get like one free custom avatar if you're above a certain.
Oh, I never knew that.
That's how I got mine. So I was like, okay, maybe you got one too. Okay, looks like you're not part of the club then. Just a joke.
Can I get a free one? Another one? I'll take a look.
I'm leaking the inside club then, huh? But I think they definitely had like a program to like incentivize content creators to do their thing on Showdown.
I was doing it for free this whole time. What the heck?
Yeah.
Are you a fan of cricket then?
I used to watch cricket. Now I don't. I watch baseball and cricket is better than baseball. But I've stopped watching them. I've stopped watching it lately. I don't watch a lot of it right now. I used to.
Cricket's very popular here in Australia. I was never into it as a kid, but everyone around me was.
Yeah.
A question from the Cron on YouTube asked, does Freezai play chess? Are you a chess fan?
I am. I played it as a kid, then I stopped playing it. I just stopped playing it like competitively. And then when Gotham Chess popped up on my YouTube feed in 2020-ish, I started playing chess again. So now it's probably in like my top 10 games played. Like sometimes I'm just really bored. I'll just open up chess.com and play a couple ladder games. I'm like 1,500 or 1,600 on the website. I'm not too good, but I do play it every once in a while. Good. I watch the Gotham Chess YouTube videos more than anything. That's my chess diet right now.
Chess is at a big renaissance for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. Gotham Chess for sure was really big, and there's other guys too, but he's probably the number one guy making it, palatable to, the average guy like me.
I had a bit of a chess phase around 2020-ish, but I feel like it's too hard. I'd never get anywhere with it. But it's still, I feel like it's good for your brain.
Yeah.
It's a good little hobby to have.
Yeah, I remember that era with like PogChamps and like Hikaru Nakamura, and I remember it really popped off. I was a fan of it, but eventually it kind of died down, kind of didn't. Then the whole Hans Niemann thing was pretty funny, so that kind of got me back into it again. I started playing again. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm literally just a Gotham Chess viewer. I watch the videos sometimes, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I play, sometimes I don't. That's about it for me.
And as a kid, did you play in tournaments, you said?
Yeah, I used to go and go to tournaments. I wasn't very good, but I did go to tournaments every once in a while.
That's fun. Any other hobbies or interests outside of just Pokemon that you enjoy?
Honestly, the past 2.5 years have literally been my life has literally been Pokemon, YouTube, and going to classes and like my work-related stuff. That's been my entire focus because I really got passionate about YouTube when I was really working on stuff. Things were, going well, are going well. Things are going well, but when they really started to pop off, that was like literally all I was doing. I quite literally don't have many hobbies outside of Pokemon and YouTube right now because of how much I've dedicated to working on YouTube. So. I mean, some things here and there in like high school and college, but nothing nothing that lasted, to be honest.
Is that like a fun life balance you got going on? The work and the Pokemon? That's all you need?
It's definitely satisfying that I have things to do that I like doing, and I can fill up hours of the day doing things I enjoy. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. I don't know about you, because yours is full time, right? Do you need a break from Pokemon? Like, do you decompress with like a different game, or do you just deassociate from the internet as a whole? How does it work for you?
Yeah, it's easy to get burnt out, but I still love it, of course. But I'm looking at it all day. I'm dreaming about it. So sometimes you gotta. I do a lot of like I take a walk and listen to an audiobook.
Whenever I have a fever, I dream about Pokemon. I don't know what it is, but if I'm ever like, I don't dream often, but when I have like a really bad fever, I'll be dreaming about like Mega Abomasnow or something. I don't know, but yeah,
the crazy fever dreams.
Yeah,
I very often dream about literally playing Gen 3 OU. It's kind of
that's awesome. Yeah,
it's like the Tetris effect they call it.
I mean, that's the dream, to work on stuff that you literally dream about. That's very, very amazing position to be in, for sure.
I'm thankful that things have worked out the way they have, for sure. Do you ever I feel like a lot of people have many different aspirations. Maybe as a kid they had a specific goal for their life or something. Do you ever feel like you want to branch out and try new hobbies, or even talk about different things on YouTube than just Pokemon? Or are you just happy with what's going on right now?
I've definitely thought about it, because when I have this introspection about YouTube, I like YouTube more than I like Pokemon. If I happen to pick Yu-Gi-Oh or something, right, I would be making videos about Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, Pokemon is not what ties me down. I just like making videos. I like the idea of telling a story. I like the idea of looking at the analytics, trying to figure out what's something that would resonate. That's the most important part. So I've definitely thought about doing YouTube for other topics, even, right? Other topics that I may be knowledgeable about. So I've definitely thought about it. Obviously, that requires effort. So that's kind of what's limited me right now, that I'm not really willing to put in, extra effort to try something new right now. But I've definitely thought about it, because I don't know, what's your relationship with like YouTube? Do you like Pokemon more, or is it like YouTube more? Like, what's your situation with that? I'm interested in hearing.
I like them both. I mean, I've, like I said, been making YouTube videos since I was a kid. So I do have some attachment to YouTube, to be honest. And like I learned how to edit from watching old YouTube poops back in the 2000s. I've watched many different channels over the years, and yeah, I think I probably have an equal passion for both, I would say, because I've also played Pokemon as my premier hobby, and it's the game I'm best at. It's something I've always had as like a goal to work towards, something to improve at over time. Whereas YouTube is more of a creative outlet. Maybe they serve different purposes for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, for sure. Yeah.
That's interesting, though. Have you had much of a history with YouTube? Or have you had older channels and watched it as a child?
I watched Niga Higa growing up, but that's about it. I kind of you watch YouTube like every once in a while. There are YouTubers you kind of follow. But I wasn't really a YouTube baby growing up, to be honest. I just an occasional viewer is where I was until 2021-ish, 2022-ish. Around that time, I really started getting passionate about actually researching and, reading every, YouTube related thing I could find, and, watching every Mr. Beast podcast. I've really been in the weeds, but that's a very, recent development for me. It's not something I grew up doing.
I've seen a lot of the Mr. Beast interviews too. Just a very fascinating individual he is.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think he gets a lot of. I have friends when I tell them I watch every Mr. Beast podcast. I'll have friends who'll be like, "Oh, that guy seems really weird," and then I'll be like running defense for Mr. Beast, because I've watched his videos. I think he's interesting. I think you don't get where you are without at least knowing a little bit of what you're doing. And there's like the Mr. Beastification of YouTube, which I've seen thrown around a lot. But I overall think Mr. Beast is a good guy doing good things. But yeah, I've definitely, I might be sympathetic to him. But that might be my bias to it. But I've definitely, heard about Mr. Beast and the Mr. Beastification of YouTube.
I don't have particularly strong feelings about him as a person. I don't know, because you can never know how people actually
that's
are
true.
In private.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, especially for YouTube, you can put on a happy face for 8 minutes. No one's gonna know what you really are like. Twitch is like a little bit. It's hard to be, a different person for like an 8-hour stream. But YouTube, you can definitely, be someone who you're not, I guess you can call it. It's hard though, but you can do it.
Yeah, you can never claim to know. He seems like a good dude though, and he has great advice for YouTubers. in my opinion.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure. For sure.
I've gotten a lot out of his advice, and I apply it to my own videos.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you were to make videos about other topics, what do you think? What do you think would interest you?
Well, I like listening to like different history YouTube videos, so maybe something about history. If it's not but I'm not exactly knowledgeable about history, so I like, I can read a Wikipedia page too, but I'm not classically trained or anything like that. So, but if you're talking about like my dream job, like not dream job, but dream YouTube channel, probably something around history, because I find that interesting, the idea of you researching and looking things up.
Interesting, like ancient Rome and stuff like that.
Maybe not ancient Rome, but like I'm trying to think of a good example of like these type of infotainment channels, I guess you can call them. There's a really like honestly, I don't know the names right now. I can't name something off the top of my head, but those infotainment type of
I know the genre of YouTuber you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Overall. I would love to see the Freezai history channel in the future.
Yeah.
That'd be epic. Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Hi there, man. Channel asks, what is your base speed stat IRL? Are you fast in real life?
Shit, I ran like I'm trying to think. I ran like a 7-minute mile in high school, so I'm not too fast. No, I didn't run. I wonder what that would translate to, but I'm not too fast. No, I probably give me an 80. I want to be like a strong physical attacker. Not 80? Too fast. Give me an 80. Give me a base 80 for sure.
There you go, folks. Base 80 for speed stat for Freezai. Ice type. Have you ever had any interest in other competitive games besides Pokemon? Because you seem to have a competitive spirit at heart.
Let me think. So I played chess. I'm really into sports, but competitive games, I really like Fire Emblem, but that's not competitive, right? I'm trying to think. I never really got into like League of Legends or Fortnite or anything like that. So not really, to be honest, which is, I guess, interesting, but no, not really. No, sports is about it for me.
There's competitive Advance Wars, which is a similar game to Fire Emblem. They actually have a pretty similar regular battle simulator, like a browser-based battle simulator for that, I think.
I had no idea. I've played the GBA emulator of the games before, but I had no idea that they had like an official, or like not an official, but I didn't know they had like a simulator. I'll actually check that out. What is it called? Like Advanced Wars Simulator? That could be cool.
I can't remember, but you'll probably find it if you look that up. That's something I wanted to look into and like maybe make videos on, because I think it's really interesting. And probably not many people know about how that works.
Yeah, I definitely don't know, and I would be interested. So that's cool.
What kind of sports were you into? Cricket?
I'm a huge football fan, like American football fan. I think cool. It's a great sport. I know the Europeans will be mad at me, but I think it's a great sport for sure. I'm honestly interested in all the sports like basketball and baseball, cricket, and football. I'm a junkie with that, but yeah, just normie stuff, to be honest.
You can play ping pong. That's a fun sport.
In high school, I played ping pong every once in a while. I wasn't very good at it. I don't know. I never played ping pong too much, but I know how to play. So
you follow sports closely, support certain teams.
Oh yeah, definitely. After one of my hobbies is literally just watching sports. Yeah, I used to play in high school, but yeah, ever since like ever since like actually getting a job and stuff, I haven't had the time to go out and do it. Honestly, finding adult hobbies are a little tougher than just being at school, talking to your friends at school and doing stuff. So it's a little more challenging, but it can still be done. But you have to put a little bit more effort to actually get things done.
That's definitely true. Less time these days. I always tell myself I want to get into a new hobby, but I actually try, and I'd rather just stick to what I already know, like Pokemon or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I bought an arcade stick to play Street Fighter. Got into that for like a little bit, but I have not kept up with all that as much as I would enjoy that. What can we expect for the future of the Freezai channel? Anything interesting you've got in the works? Any ideas about, like you said, where you see yourself in 5 years or so? The direction you're moving towards?
That's a very, very tough question for me to answer, because I honestly don't know where the channel is heading. So my philosophy is that making mistakes doesn't really hurt. Like, say you do something like a video idea that people don't like, well, then next time you just don't do it, right? So you have a lot of freedom in making mistakes. So I don't mind being more adventurous and trying new things to make new videos, because when I look at what YouTube means to me, I want to be Wolfie VGC tier of big, and how can I make that happen? What I'm doing right now isn't really converging to a million views, right? If I were to make Smogon bands, Volcarona videos, infinitely, it wouldn't get me to where I want to be. So I'm definitely always looking to try new things, even if it doesn't mean it works, or even if I take a long time to do it, because for example, one video that does 200,000 views is as good as two videos doing 100,000 views in terms of, like, it's basically the same thing. So spending more time to be selective about my ideas and iterating on things that are, you know, maybe going to work, maybe not going to work. I find that more interesting for where I'm at right now with my, I guess, YouTube journey, what I find interesting to do. Because, yeah, I feel like there's a plateau at some point of doing only Smogon content. And I realize this may come off the wrong way that, oh, he's only looking for expansion. He's not caring about what he's doing, which is not really true. I'm trying to do both. I'm trying to focus on what I like doing, what I care about, but I'm also looking at, you know, how can I make this bigger? How can I share my stories with more people? How can I get more people, you know, interested in what I'm doing? So that's why I don't know if you've noticed, but I've stopped doing videos about generic Smogon bans, because at some point it's you know, you've heard it a billion times. Oh, Moltres Galar is too strong in UU. It has Stab Nasty Plot. It's like, yeah, Stab Fiery Rat, the Nasty Plot. You've heard it a million times. At some point, that type of content plateaus. So I've been trying to do more and more, you know, interesting thing, broader things. And sometimes it doesn't work, straight up. But that's something I'm okay with doing, because I'm very fortunate that my livelihood is not tied to YouTube, because it's my secondary thing. If my YouTube, you know, has a temporary dip because all my ideas are bad, it's not like I can't pay rent, right? So I'm very comfortable in that regard. So I'm thankful for that. So I'm basically trying to iterate on things that I think can do well. And it's kind of like, I don't know where that's going. I have ideas, like I have plans of, let me try this thing over here, see if that works, iterate, try something different, you know, trying to do quality over quantity, all these different things. So to answer the question, I don't know, and part of that's actually kind of beautiful, that you don't know what's going to happen, but part of it is also a little you know, weird. Is where I'm at with it right now.
Yeah, but you got big dreams of a meteoric rise.
Yeah, that's the only way to live, right?
The video ideas with wider appeal, something I've tried to do. I'm moving more towards videos that, not necessarily like, I guess what I'm trying to do is have videos that age better. Yeah, a video about a Smogon ban will be relevant for a pretty short amount of time, whereas my video about, like, water types throughout every generation or something, that's a video that people can return to and that will maintain its relevance for a longer amount of time to people.
That's definitely true.
So
yeah, so that's like, is that like a conscious decision you're making to be more, I guess, you know, evergreen, I guess is the word for it?
Yeah, I want to talk about, like, talking about what, I don't know, happened, like Linear Curve, the story of him winning Callus Invitational 4, I think it was, with a jump off. That's a story that I think will stand the test of time, in a video that will. Whereas if I'm talking about what happened this week in OU, it has a fleeting amount of relevance.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that those interesting stories are also, those have more potential. They hold people's attention. They're easy for people to share around, because it's a compelling idea. It's an event that happened.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I remember your video about, was it Slacking or Shed Ninja? I'm looking at it. Yeah, how Shed Ninja won $1,000 and has, you know, 272 views. That's like the title is very compelling. It's, you know, interesting. So yeah, I definitely see your point of view that making stories is always going to be in fashion.
Yeah, that is a perfect example of what I'm talking about and what I'm trying to do. You can't do that. I can't do that every day. I try to make videos pretty often, so you're not always going to have that $1 million idea. Sometimes it's just going to be a simpler idea.
You know, one thing you could try is, this is what I've noticed Wolfie doing too, is that Wolfie VGC does a lot of videos about tournaments, like him playing the tournament. And part of that it really suits a YouTube style, because there's an inbuilt narrative and you don't know the answer. Is he going to win the tournament? Is he going to lose the tournament? And people, it's like, so that could be something you could do, right? You could try, you know, making your own tournament runs. And if you fail in the tournament, that doesn't really matter, because you still have a good story of how you tried and failed, right? Or basically writing your own stories instead of talking about somebody else's, I think is a very interesting idea that I've tried to do sometimes when I, you know, talked about Smogon Champions League, for example, or World Cup of Pokemon, for example. But that could be something interesting to try out, because I don't believe I've seen that on your main channel, like some sort of, it's mainly discussion videos, right? But maybe you could have ideas around that, just to spitballing an idea.
I've never done that before. That is a popular format. I could, and that would be an excuse to play tournaments again as well, which I haven't really been doing. Yeah, I don't know.
Is there a tournament like that in ADV OU that you could target and try and do well and, you know, make videos about? I'm not sure about the entire scene.
Yeah, there are the open tournaments on Smogon, and there's Pokemon Perfect, which hosts the old gen tournaments, and then there's there's a bunch of open tournaments that lead into a championship. So I've been in that championship before, once. And
Yeah.
ADVPL
I
as
think
well, the
those
team
are-
tournament.
Yeah, those are fantastic stories to tell, and it doesn't really matter if you lose because you still have a story to tell, which I think is the good part about it. So that could be an idea, for example.
I think I will try that. Yeah, that's a good idea. Another idea I had was I have my streams where people request that I use specific Pokemon in Gen 3. And for whatever reason, Magcargo, whenever people request Magcargo, I just cannot lose with it, even though it's like a horrendous Pokemon. I have not lost with Magcargo on stream once. Like, I think
That's
11 or
awesome,
10
yeah.
games. So that could be a video idea, like how Magcargo refuses to lose or something.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm looking at the Jimothy Gaming channel right now with the Magcargo video.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's real cool.
How was your gaming channel? You've got your Freezai Live channel.
Yeah, that is situational in that, like, for a while I was doing random battles to the top. So the way I look at the second channel I have, it's kind of like a slop channel. Whatever I think is cool, but I don't really want to edit. I just post me gaming, and it'll do decently enough that it's a insignificant portion of views, but it's very much kind of a slop channel is what I would call it, which is still good for people who don't really. It's good for the demographic of people who are interested in, just raw gameplay of me playing a tournament, for example, right? I think that's interesting to a lot of people, including myself. Like I would watch, if anybody, for example, BKC uploaded live tournament games, I would watch that. So it's that type of thing, or Blunder or Pokemon or anyone. If they uploaded live tournament games, I would definitely watch that. So that's kind of what I feel like. A lot of tournament players don't upload to YouTube, so you don't have that perspective of how they're actually playing the game, the ups and downs, and what's actually happening. You don't get to see that. So I feel like I'm able to provide that perspective just by recording me playing the game, which I think is very unique in that regard.
That is cool. You've done some commentary as well on there, haven't you?
I have, but commentary, it gets boring to me. I don't find it interesting to commentate someone else's games. I would rather just play my own. So I did do commentary. I did do, best of compilations of like games and stuff, but it was not long-term sustainable for me because I didn't find it interesting was the main thing.
Oh, that's a shame. I really enjoy commentary personally. I think that it's an opportunity for storytelling, trying to explain to the average viewer who may not be as into competitive Pokemon, like who's winning right now, why, like these intricate details are important. It can be a difficult thing to do, but I find it very rewarding.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I've seen you're commenting on the Revival Gaming channel, I believe it was called. The Revival Tournament was interesting.
I think that Smogon formats have a lot more potential in terms of showing the competitive side of the game to more people. I don't think there is much tournament commentary on YouTube for Smogon tournaments, and most competitive communities have that. They'll have a stream for like a fighting game local, or they chuck the commentary on YouTube. But a lot of Smogon formats just happen in silence, and the wider community don't know about them. So I'm trying to show everybody.
It is awful. It is awful, and the problem is it's not an easy. There's no easy solution. You can't force people to upload videos, or you can't force people to care. Like every few years somebody says, hey, we should be doing more to solve this problem, and the answer is always, yeah, we did, and then it dies after a month because no one gives a shit, and it just happens consistently. It's tough to make people care, and it's a problem that people have stronger people than me have tried and failed to solve the problem, and it just goes nowhere. And not to be defeatist about it, but I think it's a very tough problem to crack, and I personally have not found a way to get people consistently interested in a tournament game, really.
I thought our ADV Revival tournament was a pretty good success. Like the tournament sets were getting about 10k views each, like at a minimum, and some of the more exciting ones with an interesting Pokemon in there, or a matchup people wanted to see, were getting more views. And we were doing the highlights, and I was trying to make it so my main channel content weaved into the narrative of the tournament, where I would talk about a specific niche Pokemon in Gen 3, then reference how this particular player used it, and he's playing in the tournament that you can watch over here, like next week. And my videos about why I like Gen 3 led into me hosting the Gen 3 tournament. I think that's what you have to do, is like tell a story that makes people interested in watching the format you're talking about, and then make the tournament then, where you can't just really expect people to show up without giving them a reason to care in the first place, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I guess my not even criticisms, but my thing with the revival tournaments, it didn't like people will watch it. They'll watch a video, but they won't. That's just it. Very like a small percentage of them are coming back to interact with the community. And what I feel is that you really need a much larger scale for that pipeline to really create like a very active community, because people are just like watching the video and then they're moving on, and then you're not really building a community or a fan base is what I felt. Now I'm obviously not in the weeds of what you're doing, and you could be building a fantastic fan base, but that was my perspective on it. It's very tough to get people to care after they watch the video, and then they have to care about it after watching the video. I found that tough to do at a really large scale.
That is tough. For ADV Revival, we had pretty frequent uploads, so people had a schedule of watching the video. So that's a way you can tackle it, is have a consistent schedule in a format that's easy to understand and follow, where there's a through line of names you recognize, and we had the highlights every week as well, which was something for people to look forward to.
I actually remember this. There was like some drama in the Smog Tours Discord, like during it's typical for there to be drama. There was like some ADV drama in the Smog Tours Discord like months ago. I remember hearing about the revival tournament from that drama. But yeah, my main thing is it's not at the scale. Like 10K views is great, but you really need to be bigger. And how do you get bigger than 10K views? I'm not sure how to do it. That's my thing about it.
I was happy with it. I don't think many Smogon formats get even that much attention. So
yeah, definitely,
it's a step up. I thought. But we're currently hosting the Invitational, and that has a bit less interest than ADV Revival did. I think because it's not open to everybody, and maybe the tournaments are more try-hard. The team choices are more try-hard. So there's no like you had the pools replays, which were like relatively newer players using pretty wacky stuff, which were very entertaining. Easy to make like a flashy thumbnail, like of Dust Skull. Somebody used Dust Skull, but
yeah, absolutely. You guys are definitely doing like major steps up compared to anyone else. Quite frankly, you're doing huge things, but you're not at the scale where you can, for example, pay someone to edit videos, or like to really like scale up. You need a little bit more viewership, and that's kind of where I feel like, what is the path to going up from 10K viewers to 20K or 30K? What's that path looking like? And I don't see a clear answer. And that's kind of why I got bored of it too, because I'm like, I don't see how we can, force people to, at scale to become interested. But you guys are definitely, like, I'm not intending this as criticism. You guys are doing a fantastic job of even getting viewers you do have, for sure.
Yeah, and we're thinking about the same stuff. It's kind of a new frontier. We're doing it in a format that's pretty unique. That it's different to other competitive games too, where we're covering replays rather than like live games, because Pokemon tournaments happen week by week rather than like a live tournament that happens on one day, like a fighting game tournament. So the coverage has to be structured differently. So I guess we're trying to figure out the best way to do it in a way that is attractive to people.
For sure.
It's tough, but I think it's just trial and error and try things out. And I think an advantage we have is that it's relatively low production cost to make a Pokemon commentary. You could just click record on OBS. As long as the overlay looks nice, that's the most important thing. And the person talking is relatively knowledgeable about the format. You don't need a full like production crew or anything to cover Pokemon. You don't even need to host it in an in-person venue. There's none of that overhead or anything. So.
Yeah.
You've hosted tournaments of your own, haven't you? There was a Little Cup tournament you hosted, wasn't there?
I did not host that. I just told people to sign up to it, and it became really big, but I was not hosting it, no.
My mistake. I think a lot of people associate that one with you.
I remember people got really mad that it messed up the Grand Slam, which I thought was funny, but people were definitely mad that it kind of messed up the Grand Slam timing, but I think it was like worth it to try, but to each their own.
What happened there? What was the issue there?
So basically like for the viewers who don't know how the Smogon Grand Slam works, is first is UU, like it's like week by week tournament, right? First is UU and RU, I want to say. I don't remember. Anyway, UU, RU, NU, PU, then Uber's Little Cup. Little Cup is the third tournament, right? And everything happens week by week. And Little Cup, I believe, had 5 to 6 more rounds compared to every other tournament because it was that big. So Grand Slam as a whole had to wait for the results of Little Cup. So it extended the tournament by about like 2 months, I think. So that kind of made people mad. Well, now Little Cup is the first tournament instead of being the last one. But yeah, that people were mad about that at the time.
Well, what can you do?
Which is understandable. But yeah. I'm sorry, did you say something?
No. Would you like to host more tournaments in the future and experiment with that side of things? Or are you more
Here's the
focused
thing,
on the storytelling and the main channel stuff?
I like the idea of hosting tournaments. I don't like actually hosting tournaments and dealing with the overhead of, angry players and coordinating stuff, and that's all stuff I'm not too interested anymore. But I do like the idea of, I want to do a tournament about X, Y, and Z. Let me go out there and make it happen. I like that. I just don't like doing all the dirty work underneath. So I don't know if I'll host tournaments in the future, but it's kind of annoying having to, you have a cool idea for a tournament, but you also have to deal with somebody angry about something, or some guy didn't show up to his game and now they're arguing about the activity wins, or trying to deal with all the underlying details are just not fun. So I don't know if I'll host tournaments again, but yeah.
That is true. And in Revival, that was a big issue. But a lot of newer players were not privy to the scheduling etiquette of Pokemon tournaments. A lot of them didn't show up.
Very common.
There were a lot of act wins in the early rounds.
Yeah, those are such a mess to handle. I do not envy anyone who has to do that.
There was one unfortunate situation where a famous player, Blues Energy, caught an act loss on a technicality because he was held up at work, he couldn't update his opponent on what was going on at the time, and then he missed their scheduled time by the exact amount that we said in the rules, which was I can't remember. I thought it was 30 minutes or something like that. But then he showed up, but then the guy claimed act win. I'm like, I guess we gotta give him the act win, unfortunately.
Yeah, dealing with the drama of that, I'm just over it. I do not care anymore.
I was lucky to have a pretty fantastic team of moderators and staff helping out with that. But that is definitely an annoying part of it. You've been making a lot of content about Hackmons recently. What are your thoughts on Hackmons overall as a format?
I'll be honest, I don't play much of it. I just think it's fun to hear about Light Ball Pikachu with Imposter. I think it's just funny to hear about. That's honestly I'm interested in telling cool stories, and Hackmons happens to have a lot of cool stories that people have never heard about because it's such a niche format, and it's also easy to understand. If you try to tell somebody, oh, there's a really cool strategy in Gen 4 RU, and it's like, okay, what's RU? And then you have to explain the whole exposition, and it's it adds a layer of inertia. But hacked Pokemon, people in 2 words, they have an understanding of what's going on. It takes 1 line to explain it, and you can talk about goofy strategies. I don't play much Hackmons, but it's very easy to tell a good story about Hackmons because it has all these inherent factors that make it interesting.
I never considered that. It is pretty easy to explain, isn't it? Maybe I'll make some Hackmons videos as well.
Yeah, it's fun to talk about for sure.
I played Gen 6 and 7 balanced Hackmons, and I really enjoyed it actually. Although it can get very stally, more than other formats, because there's Poison Heal everywhere, and Prankster Parting Shot, Registeel, and all this stuff. My buddy actually got a high ladder position with this cool tech in Gen 6. Chansey is a staple of Hackmons because it can Imposter and have massive HP, and even have Eviolite to gain the Eviolite boost on a fully evolved Pokemon, which is crazy. But another thing that was really broken in Hackmons was Mega Gengar, and I think also Dragapult now, with Normalize. They make you normal type, and then they're immune to all your attacks. But they make all your attacks normal type, and then they're immune to everything because they're Ghost.
Oh, yeah. That's epic, yeah.
Something my buddy did was and the way they bypass that, is they have Normalize themselves, but the Arceus plate that grants the Ghost plate, and Judgment bypasses Normalize, so it's still a Ghost type attack.
Oh.
So my buddy ran Chansey with Spectral Plate to play around the enemy's Normalize, copy their Judgment, and it would bypass them normalizing them and hit them with the Judgment, which was insane.
That's awesome.
I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. It's really fun to talk about. I don't know if it's as fun to play, but it's fun to talk about all the goofy strategies.
Based on what you've told me, I don't think you would enjoy it. It's very stally and often comes down to PP situations, actually.
That's unfortunate.
Also one of the formats with the lowest amount of RNG and variance.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Well, Freezai, I think that we should probably wrap things up at this stage. I'm sure I think it's getting a bit late for you, in fact, over there.
Oh, nice little 100-minute session. It's 10:45 right now. So a 1 hour, 45 minute. That's not bad, actually.
Excellent.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun to be on the podcast. Fun to talk with someone who knows Pokemon, who knows YouTube, and have like a real, deep discussion about that. So thank you for having me on, and thank you for the viewers who make this type of thing possible.
And thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with me today.
No
One
problem.
final question for you, though, from Ward.
Okay.
Ward Skidodles. What is Freezai's stance on the controversial topic of Magcargo's admittance to the Horse Council? What do you think about this?
Cargo's admittance to... Okay, this is definitely some deep cut lore I don't know, but let me use my, brain blast here. Magcargo is an ADV cult figure in the Jimothy Cool community. The Horse Council, I can only imagine... So, like, does it beat Mudsdale? But Mudsdale's not in Gen 3. Oh no, is Magcargo a horse? Magcargo could be a pretty cool. Can you ride a Magcargo? Probably not. You get burnt. We'll call Magcargo a horse. I'll admit it to the Horse Council. That's my official verdict.
There you go. We've got a supporter. The joke, by the way, is that Magcargo in Gen, I think 8 or 9, learns the move high horsepower, which I said it technically
I knew
makes
there
him
was
a
something
horse.
going on.
Well, anyway, thank you for that answer, and thank you for the chat. I'll catch you later, Freezai.
Right, bye.